before the real conquests of the Debaters Season 3 begin. 12 teams showed up at the training camp at British University, Vietnam to sharpen their weapons. This boot camp has helped our debaters best prepare professionally and mentally.
We're in our third season with the debaters, and it's really excellent to watch the students grow and improve their ability to debate as the competitions proceed. And again, that's very useful for students when they join a university that's focused on developing their critical thinking and all the other soft skills that they need to develop in today's economy.
Their heavy pressure was alleviated when the judges arrived and offered them some wise words from their own debate experience.
What I was more impressed by was their level of engaging with the judges. They asked really good questions. They were also quite engaged in what we were trying to offer them in terms of insight or tips or just thoughts about debate. So I really appreciated that.
We want them to focus on delivering and doing a lot of research to understand the emotions and can deliver the spirit of emotion to the audience for them to understand. And second of all, it is a golden chance for them to practice the basic strategies so that they can improve further, set a strong foundation for debate skill and strategy so they can go further in the out rounds if they have a chance to get through.
We'll see how well prepared they are for the upcoming debates. Good luck to all of the 12 teams, and let the Debaters Season 3 begin.
Welcome back to the Debaters Season 3, a debate game show for Vietnamese students all over Vietnam. The Debaters is produced by VTV7, National Education Television Channel for Vietnamese Television, and British University, Vietnam. I'm Long Vo, and I'll be your host. Let's take a look and see how the contestants have been preparing for today. But first, let's take a look at our motion. That we regret the saturation coverage of youth struggles on TV series.
What was truly hard about the motions and the fact that we're debating on television is that it's much harder to reject those temptations and in order to think of better points, better argumentation that properly reflects the truth of the situation and the nuance, since
I heard that our opponents are quite experienced, so personally I feel quite anxious. However, we have made a lot of preparations and received a lot of support from our friends, family, and our mentors as well.
So Lost Stars is a team that has previously already have experience in debate. So a lot of my job when working with them and the challenges that they face is how to explain this phenomenon in the most human way possible and to really bring that aspect of sympathy into their speech and their style.
I think that we should not be so stressed about whether we win or we lose. However, we think that we just come here and just have a wonderful experience and everything will be fine.
We find motion relatively challenging and difficult because our motion relates directly to us, which is the youth. So we always trying to bring and impart the most effective information so that because we stand on behalf of our community.
I think that most of our mentees here do care about your struggle, since they are the one who see and experience those. And for my teams, I think that although they are having not such a hard time, but they are kind of, I think that, overthinking about it. So I think that when we can organize our ideas, our case building will appear.
For my feelings right now, I feel excited to be able to join this battle with my teammates, and for the upcoming debate, I expect it to be an intense debate because we're still facing one of the toughest opponents in this tournament.
So before this match, my team, CNN Bumblebees, already know their opponents. So I think that is one of the ways that our team can prepare well for the debate when they know their opponent's strengths and weaknesses.
And before we get started, let's get to know our teams a little personally. So guys, I see there's a lot of men on our team over here. Do you think that's going to be an advantage or disadvantage for us?
Having just a team of men can really help because we're the same gender. We can talk about a lot more things, but in other times, maybe having different genders may bring more diversity and more discussion to any topic. So I think there's always certain ups and downs.
Yeah. Nice, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And over here, hello, where are you guys from?
So we're from Hanoi, and we're also from the same school.
Also from the same school, so are these guys over here your friends?
Yeah. I know a couple of them.
Okay, well, do you think that's going to be an advantage or disadvantage?
I think that it will somewhat be an advantage, our team, because I know what they're going to trying to say or like going to
Oh, you know all of their tricks already, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's nice. When you know all of their tricks, you know what they're going to do so you can trick them, right?
Yes.
Or maybe they don't know all of your tricks and then you'll be tricked.
That's unlikely.
Okay, fair enough. Well, first of all, if we want to have a good competition, we also have to have some great judges too. Why don't we have a word with some of our judges over here? Welcome back, judges. It's nice to see you guys. So what do you guys think about the motion? Have you watched any of the movies that we talked about, or do you have any kind of preconceived notions about this motion? Why don't we start with Hyewan?
Personally, I've not watched these shows, but I know for a fact that many of my students are obsessed with some of these shows. But nonetheless, I think the motion itself is quite challenging for both teams because you have to discuss something that's happening, but really compare why it's regrettable. So I am looking forward to what kind of debate we'll have today.
Nice. Long, I have a question for you. Do you think it's kind of ironic that we're having children talking about children topics?
I don't personally think it's ironic, but I would looking forward to the irony from their speeches. However, I think for this topic, I think it's pretty close to the audience, which is debaters as well. And I think there's a lot of things that we can discover and discuss.
And Stuart, I have a question for you. Do you find that the movies and videos that kids are watching nowadays are different from when you were a kid?
I haven't actually watched any of the series, but this is exactly the same argument that was happening when I was younger. Around 15 or 16, there was a TV show that came out that depicted teenagers taking drugs, having suicide or committing suicide, looked at various mental health issues as well. And so this is not a unique argument or motion for today. This has been repeated throughout history and throughout time. So it's very interesting to see what this generation's take on this motion is.
Thank you, judges, for your words. It's nice to hear from you guys always. And without further ado, can I introduce our first contestants up? From the proposition team, the Lost Stars, Đoàn Đức Huy. Please come on up. And from the opposition team, the CNN Bumblebees, Vũ Hương Giang. Please step on up. So, being the first speaker, does it give you any anxiety?
Not quite, because I have got the chance to prepare my speech in advance. However, I think that the first speech is also plays such an important role in the debate, so there's still a certain level of pressure.
It's true, and I think you're going to kill it, right?
Yes.
Okay, good luck, sir. And how do you feel going up against a team of 3 men?
I feel a little bit worried, but I believe that I can do good in this round.
Don't worry about it. I know Vietnamese women are very strong, and I think you're going to really just soar, so don't worry about it. Before we start, let me just go over the rules really fast. For the first round, you'll have 3 minutes. The proposition team will start first, and we will have no POIs. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, without any further ado, may the debates begin.
It is painfully ironic that humans create entertainment, but entertainment ends up controlling our lives. And also we might have created these shows in hopes of raising awareness. They end up dictating how we see these problems and strip victims of the ability to share their voice. 2 things I want to clarify before we start the debate. Firstly, TV show episodes have strict time limits. Therefore, it is quite insufficient to discuss different aspects of any issue. And secondly, regardless of the original goal, the ultimate priority of film film studio at the end of the day is still profit because they need money to fund their projects, they need money to pay their workers. Therefore, they tend to A. Simplify the structural costs because they really want to make the content that can easily understood by the mainstream audience, and B. They are likely to add dramatic events so that the films can become more intriguing. The first argument that we want to bring here in this debate is that the saturation coverage of TV series, which are heavily romanticized, is likely to create misperceptions among the audience about youth struggles. As we have characterized, films are likely to be made suitable to the mainstream audience. Therefore, they may misrepresent the reality because they may simplify the problem while it's much more complicated in the real life. Therefore, we believe that when those series become so popular, this due to the saturation coverage, people start to think that, oh, this is what depression look like, this is what youth struggle look like, this is what addiction look like, and then they start to associate victims with those harmful stereotypes. Two main impacts for this argument. The first impact is that as the structural cost is often simplified, many people falsely identify themselves as having such problems. For example, the saturation coverage in Vietnam has turned concepts like depressions, mental illness, sexual disorders into cool slang or buzzword on the internet for younger generations to use in everyday life situations. But this also takes away the voice of the actual victims, because then when every victim shares their voice, everyone just dismisses it and say that, oh, this is part of the trend, it is not serious. And the second impact of this argument is that the saturation coverage drowns out the portrayal of accurate information, because when people swallow up the portrayals from TV series, they think that they have known enough about those issues because it is so visualized. Therefore, there will no longer any incentives for them to dig deeper, as well as add nuance to their understanding. And this will also build an expectations for how youth struggle look like in the eyes of normal citizens. And it will be harder for film producers as well as advocates who want to represent the problem correctly to break into the market. All in all, we believe that in a world where fiction defines reality and youth struggle is reduced to an aesthetic for teenagers to define their internet persona, we ensure that victims will never receive the help that they need in time. Thank you for listening.
The only preconditions of the propositions team is that people's perceptions depend wholly on the film. But if the TV series try to romanticize, they will get opposed from people because first, social media spread news reviews about the TV series so that it can give the discussions for people, and people see both the good and bad factor of this film, and people can be objective to those films. And second, watchers know that details are just for adding nuance for the film so that they are not focused on the very much and not believe in the very much because of that. So comes to our case. Nowadays, youth struggles are in people care about, especially youth. For example, is depressions and self-blame. Coming to our characterizations, firstly, teenagers face different kinds of struggles throughout their life as they grow up, and also the society process, so that they are very vulnerable and they need help. Second, TV series have various news because they show the projects of individuals with the struggles. Moreover, TV series are portrayed with entertainment to become more attractive to youth. We have two claims. First, saturation coverage means persistent and better awareness of youth. So, the way TV series portray and bring saturation coverage can help the target audience, the youth, first know their struggles and better because they suffer before but don't know what it is. And TV series will try to attract youth because they will try to make money and develop more portrayals. And second, know the youth can know the seriousness of these problems. For example, there's a consequence of addictions, and if it repeats daily, and it will raise the empathy of the people, then it gives incentive to bring change to their actions that we prove in my second speaker. Why does those things matter? Because in Eastern, concerning about youth struggle is not a dominant mindset because people still conservative and just think that kids are too sensitive. And even if they know their problems, their lack of incentive, and since they don't think youth struggles is harmful and have little to no initiative to deal with the youth. Therefore, youth in Eastern even aren't aware of their problem, and people just take small concern of their problem, and they would need help most. However, it still matters in Western, where youth struggles already portray many things about youth, such as films about youth struggles. But in alternative propositions, we are better because your alternative don't have enough volume to raise the awareness of the youth. Also, the incentive of quality quality of the film or the diversity of the film is enhanced, so that we believe that the opposition teams is the teams that will win in this debate.
Wow, good job, guys. That was really good. So, sir, were you shining today?
Yes, there are some slip in my speech. However, I think that I have done my best to finish my speech.
And how did you do over here, miss? I saw you, you came in very quiet, very soft, and when you gave your speech, fire.
Yes.
Yeah, like a little firecracker. Pretty good there. Yeah, you looking forward to the critiques from the judges?
Yes, I'm very looking forward there. Yes.
Nice. Mr. Stewart, yes. Can I get the critiques from you, please, sir?
I'll start with the Lost Stars team first and then move on to Zhang's team. So what I think you did, Kui, very well is introduce all of the main points and claims and impact very, very clearly. For me, I think making sure that that impact is communicated very clearly is important because we can build up cases, but if we don't really know what outcome they have or impact it has on the issue at hand, then it's always limited. So that was very, very good. However, which was missing for me, and which Zhang did very well, was that I think actually the notion of saturation is quite an important part of this motion. And I think actually, Kui, some of your points could have been strengthened by leaning on the notion of saturation a little bit more. Zhang, that's what you did really well. I'm glad that you alluded to what saturation meant in this particular context. What I think you did very well as well, which the other team didn't do, is the characterization. I do have a few issues with some of the ideas, especially, the idea that social media can help be an objective or provide objective views on this subject matter. I find that a little bit difficult to buy into. At the moment, in terms of which ideas have most clarity and also I think have most legs in terms of their reach, I'm going to go with the Lost Stars team for my 10 points.
Nice job. And hey, Juan.
I kind of came into the show thinking I'm going to be super critical, not going to touch the like button, just going to be very stern. But honestly, when I first heard the proposition first speaker speech from the setup, my internal response was just like chef's kiss. I just felt it was so well contextualized and it was just so organized to the point of very efficiently using the 3 minutes that was given to you. I really enjoyed how you talked about the heavily romanticized element of these shows. Sure, leads to awareness, but that awareness was negative. Like, ultimately, they easily identify, I think is the word you used, taking away voices, and furthermore about having these set expectations. I just felt that that was such a powerful case coming from the proposition. But then from the opposition as well, I felt like when you come up and tell me that, raising awareness in contexts where this is not available, I felt was very important ideas as well. And I like the fact that you even mentioned a problem of lack of initiative dealing with, raising awareness and dealing with such issues. So that's why I enjoyed it so much. But ultimately, I have to say I was super impressed by the proposition. So my 10 points goes to the proposition.
Congratulations. And last but not least, Mr. Long.
Yes, I do agree with Ms. Hyewon and Mr. Stewart. However, in this debate, I think there's some problems with Kui that I wanted to point out. The first one is the regret motion. So we expected a counterfactual word description from your speech. We was lacking. So I'm not so sure if you regret this kind of word, right? What would be the alternative word that you were trying to defend for? And based on that kind of thing, we've got very strong responses from the other side. First of all, they say, well, in the status quo, right? In the framing of many conservative Eastern families, right? The people don't even talk about it, right? So there's people already have some kind of misperceptions at USA. So I'm not sure how you're gonna fix that perception if in the status quo or in many places where we have not access to everything, there are already misperceptions. So how can you better that on your side? On their side of the house, right? When Hyun-san pointed out, well, at least when we have these kind of misperceptions, even if it happened, we can have a lot of discussion, it is discourse, so people can fix that kind of misperception. So it's better we still have some awareness and discourse compared to nothing. So if you want to win on the clash of misrepresentation versus awareness, you need to point out why the counterfactual word in your side is actually better. So because of that reason, 10 points to opposition side.
that being said, proposition team total 20 points and opposition team total 10 points, meaning that it's still pretty close, guys, and there's lots of room. You guys can please take a seat. And don't worry, folks, we're not going anywhere. We'll be right back.
The saturation coverage of TV series, which are heavily romanticized, is likely to create misperceptions among the audience about youth struggles.
The only preconditions of the propositions team is that people's perceptions depend wholly on the film. But if the TV series try to romanticize, they will get opposed from people.
So if you want to win on the clash of misrepresentation versus awareness, you need to point out why the counterfactual world in your side is actually better.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second round of our debates today. Let us welcome our speakers from the proposition team, Phan Thế Việt, and from the opposition team, Lê Hoàng Thái Hưng. Nice to see you. So, how did you prepare for the second round? Did you listen to any of the critiques from the first round and change anything?
I think that for the most part, the things we missed were definitely already in my speech. I made some tweaks here and there in order to make sure it fills those gaps perfectly even more.
Okay, nice. All right, and Thái Hưng, how did you prepare for this round? And did you change anything after listening to the judges' critiques?
So for my speech, I also made some additional point to it and listened to the panel, and the judges were really helpful to our case overall.
Okay, nice. All right, without further ado, before we start, let's review our rules really quickly. During this round, each team will have 4 minutes to present their speech. POIs are completely allowed as long as they're under 15 seconds. Are we clear, guys?
Yes.
Keep in mind the proposition team will be going first, okay? Ready, set, debate.
For many people, this is a lived reality where every day is an active reminder of the pains they have to endure, the inner demons they have to face, and the corrosive force that they need to endure in order to not lose hope in themselves. They imagine that these insurmountable walls for some are nothing more than overused commodities for others. We believe it is wrong in every aspect of morality to objectify these victims and youth struggles as a whole as nothing more than a means for profit. But why is this also so tangibly harmful? Firstly, some rebuttals as to their case on the premise of criticism, right? We believe this won't happen because people don't have enough understanding regarding the problem in the first place, meaning nuance in development won't happen like they tell you, especially when the premise and the end is dramatized for views and clicks. But also in the initiative for tackling these issues, right? The reason we don't see initiative in today's world is because of shows like these that actively crowd out the market, like our first speaker tells you. But also on raising awareness, right? We concede that there might be discussion on their side of the house, but there is a net harm because it only further strengthens improper stereotypes and creates caricatures of these victims. The wing here, as well as our counterfactual, is that yes, we want less discussion, but right discussion is much better than quick but wrong. Now, moving on to my thesis, is that this not only robs victims of youth struggles of their escape, but actively worsens their lives as well. But first, let's answer the question of why does saturation happen in the first place? The algorithm is fundamentally designed to promote popular and or controversial clips in order to make more money, right? And so it leads to a positive cycle where these shows keep gaining notoriety on social media. It births a mania surrounding these topics and becomes the cool thing to talk about. And so it is unavoidable to come across these problems in every nook and cranny of the internet. Why is this so dangerous? Because it leads to the removal of safe spaces. Due to the popularization of these shows, as well as the fact that these issues has bled out of TV shows into other types of media, it has turned into pop culture and is exacerbated or perhaps even caused by these same series. On the other hand, although it might be a cool topic for some, it is deeply triggering and deeply traumatic for others. The nuance here is that even when victims know the other side means well, they still feel feel deeply uncomfortable since it is tiring and draining to have to explain these things to someone who can't ever understand them. The impact of which is that when everyone around them talks about it inaccurately and casually, and when there is no end to it, victims lose their safe spaces. Consider that they might have gone on social media or these entertainment platforms in order to escape their miserable reality, and yet they are reminded of it once more. And even when they like the shows themselves, right, it is still agonizing when they see non-victims talk about it in such a simplistic manner. The reason we bring this up is because there is an illusion of choice. The other side might say, oh, we have the liberty to watch whatever content we want and avoid whatever content we want. But this does not apply in practice because we do not have the free will, the autonomy to not watch these shows when everybody is talking about them, when there is a craze around them, right? And when the discussion is vastly misconstrued and people are coerced into it, panel, that's not a discussion, that's harassment. But also, why does this lead to it being portrayed as normal? These shows portray the issue as a defining aspect of youth, a part of growing up, and dare I say it, a phase. And when anything is talked about so much, it decreases in urgency. What's the impact? People become desensitized towards the difficulties youth face. For example, as time went on, lives lost became nothing more than statistics reported, and gradually these youth struggles will become irrelevant as well. Just like how the toxic work and school culture that causes alarming suicide rates within countries like Japan and Korea is normalized and accepted. They dangerously undermine the significance and threat of these youth struggles because people can't find the human sympathy to fight for change even when the issue is right in front of them, and victims don't receive necessary help. And it's deeply troubling to put victims in such a defenseless and isolated state. We ask you this question: how on earth can you say that the TV shows help the victims when they actively exploit them, they isolate them from safe spaces, and reinforces the dangerous notion that these are non-issues? Thank you.
Panel, please note that the proposition case is contingent on 2 points. The contingent of first is that this kind of audience, they don't like are many people, and secondly, they are contingent on the fact that this kind of film industry are trying to exploit them. Okay. Firstly, we believe the target audience of this kind of corporations and this kind of films are not just everyone, and most of them are just like youth. Why? Because they have the incentive to be reliable, and just like Judge Marvin and Judge Joan said, most of their students are not are like more knowledgeable and more aware of this kind of films more than themselves. So we believe this kind of film are more targeted to this kind of youth. So we believe in that kind of stakeholders, they are more likely to be like reliable, to make it as relatable as possible. Second thing is that we believe they're not going to exploit them. 2 reasons why. Firstly, is that the viewership of this kind of films are youth, like I said, and those people are the ones that directly suffering from this kind of struggles. And we believe that when there is an incentive from this kind of film who are trying their best to be relatable and to depict this kind of stuff, and they will know to be like or not, and they will and they come to film will be incentive to do stuff. Second thing is that we believe the saturation. The saturation means that there are more coverage in this film, and this means that more people see this, and when films are covered so much by the media, this means that they are facing a lot of from the public, so there can be backlash even if there are like any like wrong things. So we believe the third thing to say is that they say that it cannot explain. We believe that they say that this kind of youth can explain because they can, because it will be a chance for them to actually do this. Because on our side, they're still having the incentive to do it, and we are still allowing people to speak. Also, the fourth point is that they're saying it's too common. We believe crime is a common problem, but it being a problem doesn't make it less of a problem in this society. Also, you struggle, even if we can take their point that it is common, we believe it's still affecting because the tangible harm of this kind of like youth struggle are still affecting, so people are still more awareness. There's on our side of the house because there are more points. So, to our points. Firstly, we believe saturation coverage creates more change for the good. 4 reasons why. Firstly, it pushes and encourages people to bring changes. First, we believe that everyone has different life and situation, and society is progressing some more, so there are more topics, more problems, and more new struggle every single day. Secondly, we believe that they can learn from the movie. If the movie depict this kind of relatable stuff, and the main character they fail, like in the main character sex segregation, the main character fail to do connection to their problem or to their sex life. We believe this can be learned from this kind of audience because they know what to do and they know what to avoid, or know that the problem is in that way. So we believe, and if it works, we believe that the audience will learn from it and try to apply it the best in their life. Second, our reasons why is that media coverage. Like I say, many films, saturation and coverage, and there are many news. This means that more people realize the problem in this kind of film that they depicted. So society realizes the problem is crucial and it needs to act right now. Third reason why is empathy. We really audience see this, we will incentivize to help others. Like people will see the problem under the perspective of you. Like you see, they will see how they are in need. Just like how you see homeless people and you're trying to your best to help this kind of homeless people. And we believe the fourth reason, some youth, they're really vulnerable and alone, so that when they see the film, they'll be reliable because they know somewhere out there will be people who are having the same problem as them. They'll be reliable and persistent to help themselves, and at least on our side, we can provide a hope. So the impact is two things. First, children have more chances to solve and be less anxious, and they grow maturely and to be a better person. And secondly, children can help out other kids and stand out and have a movement. Thank you.
Judges. Ms. Hwan, may I please hear your remarks, please?
I think for me, at the end of the day, second speakers need to further on the debate by adding on analysis as well as engagement beyond what the first speakers presented. And I think ultimately, proposition was successful in telling me why saturation, first of all, what does that look like? Furthermore, beyond what the first speaker said, but also about this idea of decreasing the urgency and ultimately desensitizing the public's awareness or, I guess, knowledge of this issue, I felt was a direct engagement not only to his previous opponent, but also preempting a lot of the material that may potentially come out in the opposition. I think opposition second speaker obviously does an excellent job as well in terms of why we do need to raise awareness. However, ultimately, I felt that was a little bit limiting in comparison to the material that the proposition brought out. So in this round, my 10 points would go to the proposition.
Well, nice job there, sir. Racking up points. And I know there's a certain guy, he just really doesn't like to go at the very end. So, Stuart, I'll let you go second. I'll just be nice and let you go second.
I will start with Hum first. In terms of areas I think you can maybe work on a little bit is that I actually think towards the end of your speech, you had some fantastic points that definitely could have had more of a central role in your argument. The notion of incentivize to help others, this idea of if you provide awareness, it increases empathy, and therefore not only are these people perhaps understanding themselves better, but actually there's a support system maybe growing as people understand these issues more and more. I think something like that would, if you had built on that a little bit more, would have given you a really, really strong point that these guys may struggle to actually attack. What I felt, however, was that a lot of the first part of the speech was rehashing a lot of the kind of previous ideas in the previous rounds. And what I wanted was a clear development of some of those ideas. And I think the ideas that you had at the end were fantastic, but because of timing, we didn't get the chance to really shine the light on them. And I think that should have been a central point. So, Hum, well done for your round. For Ving, I was very impressed by how clinical you were in your execution for this one. For example, when you were talking about saturation, which is something I mentioned in the first round you guys hadn't really touched, the fact that you were saying that the mechanism behind these becoming saturated means that it starts to block out any space available because it's so popular, and those spaces are vital for people. I think the way that you built up that point was strong. So for me, in terms of the clarity of how the points have been built up and the fact that I can track their strength, I'm obliged to go with lost stars on this one.
Nice. All right, nice. And I'd like to hear from our last judge, please, Mr. Long.
Let's start with Viet. This is one little comment I want you guys to make it even clearer. It's just a counterfactual word. You say you want like more accurate, discussion, not just like more discussion. But then doesn't mean that you will have no TV series or you have TV series with any kind of mechanism to control the content or what kind of, accurate discussion you're trying to say there. I think that should be clarified more in the third speech. For your speech, Hung, I think that you did a beautiful job on re-emphasizing the importance of the awareness thing. However, I think the missing link in your team's first op speech wasn't done very well in yours. In yours, for example, when they talk about, well, we going to raise awareness of people in conservative families, but then you focus on for example on the older generations, but they are not the target audience as you characterize yourself. So I'm not sure how you're gonna fix that awareness if the target audience is not the same, for example. So it's a little bit confusing with your mechanism there. So therefore, on comparative, I think there will be more accuracy of discussion and more safety for the victims. Why you failed your own mechanism on your side, that's why another 10 points for proposition side.
So, Vic, how do you feel about the critiques from the judges? Is there anything that you don't agree with?
I think I agreed with a lot of the things all of the judges said, especially Marvin's comment about needing a better counterfactual.
Okay, nice. And Hung, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is there anything the judges said to you that you don't agree with?
I think most of the judges' feedback was helpful, and I think it will help my case a lot.
Don't worry, you don't need to be nervous.
Okay.
Don't worry, folks, we've still got another round coming and a bonus round, so I'll see you soon.
Even when victims know the other side means well, they still feel deeply uncomfortable since it is tiring and draining to have to explain these things to someone who can't ever understand them.
We believe this can be learned from this kind of audience because they know what to do and they know what to avoid, or know the problem is in that way.
A lot of the first part of the speech was rehashing a lot of the kind of previous ideas in the previous rounds.
Let's welcome our contestants up to the stage for round 3. On the proposition team, Lu Tian, please come on up. And on the opposition team, Din Kan Ang, please come on up. I'm gonna ask the lady first over here. So, you guys are a little bit far off on points. Yeah. Does that make you feel at all discouraged?
I think no, because I think 2 of my teammates have done a very great job, and I'm proud of them. So okay. I will try my best to accomplish what my team has thought as the first place.
Fair enough, and I think, just having a good spirit, it can sometimes get you so far, so wish you luck.
Thank you.
Hello, Tian. So, Tian, you heard the comments, and, the 2 guys that went before you, obviously, they really killed it. So, do you feel at all any pressure to keep on that legacy?
Yes, definitely, but my opponent is a quite experienced debater, so anything could happen.
Okay, perfect. Sounds like we're confident over here. Before we get started, let's just review the rules really quickly. For round 3, it'll be exactly like round 2. Each contestant will have 4 minutes. PRIs are acceptable. We're going to start with the proposition team. Ready, set, debate.
TV series' pernicious intention of maximizing profit comes at the expense of our society's most vulnerable actor, young people. 2 clash I will be analyzing in my speech. Firstly, on public perception, and second of all, on how this directly affects young people. On the first clash, side opposition make the mass assertion that more exposure, more social discourse equal change. We gave you multiple analyses on why this is unlikely. Firstly, TV series creates misconception due to oversimplification and exacerbation. Second of all, saturation coverage means that this become a trend, and therefore this this dismisses the voice of the actual victims, and this drowns out actual portrayal. But finally, normalization and desensitization leads to less motivation for structural change. The fact that people think they have known enough of this topic means that they won't dig deeper into the topic and make any systemic change. What is their response? They only have one line of assertion that they will dislike this series, they will have backlash, and they will call out such inaccurate portrayals. But firstly, I like to note a strategic mistake on side opposition. They conceded to us that the main target, the main audience of this TV series are young people, not conservative parents, not people with expertise. At the end of the day, we do not see how they can help like conservative parents to understand more of their children and so on. But firstly, we have previewed why like these are entertainment shows that are meant to appeal to the general public. People want to be satisfied. People want to be entertained, not to know any scientific facts. But second of all, the fact that people tune into this TV series in the first place mean that the general public lacks understanding of these issues. But what is the counterfactual? The comparative in this debate is having wrong social discourse versus having none. The comparative in this debate is the fact that we encourage education at school through documentaries on psychology and whatsoever. The nuance in this debate is the fact that this TV series crowns out such documentaries on psychology or the fact that people have real social discourse. So the problem is that when they take away all the attention from scientific documentaries that can actually help young people, the majority of people will not have a full understanding of the issue. But second of all, on our side of the house, we have educational programs, we have documentaries that can actually help them. We have won this clash, but the second clash on how this directly affect young people. We have demonstrated to you why they will trigger with the overly traumatizing content and why this remove their safe space. Side opposition gave you no response. We have demonstrated to you why constant discussions around these issues mean that young people will feel uncomfortable to speak out, and therefore the voice of the actual victims will be dismissed. But second of all, the fact that this TV series have false information, therefore young people will not be able to relate to such content, therefore they will feel even more isolated. The comparative in this debate is on our side of the house, when young people can actually speak out their mind, when young people can actually speak what is their problems and what are their real struggles. Even if we take side opposition at the absolute best case scenario, even if society have awareness on the issues on youth struggles, we say it's comparatively better on our side of the house. Why? Because on side opposition, parents, even though they have awareness of these issues, they do not know any effective solution. They will resort to overprotective mechanisms, such as they think that the fact that their child have academic problems just is because his addiction to gaming, or he spent too much time with his girlfriend, not the fact that he received insufficient attention and care from his parents, from his teachers. At the end of the day, we win on both clash, and we regret the exploitation of young people. We regret the exploitation of youth struggles. Incredibly proud to propose.
Ladies and gentlemen, today the proposition team came here with extreme confidence but with no legitimate argument to this debate. Why? Because the most fundamental question, what is the world without saturation coverage look like? We did not see that image portrayed fully in your speech today. So the proposition team told us about the winning point on their side of the house, more seriousness and more attention. But we believe that those things do not exist in our current world. Because attention. They said that our policy lessened the awareness and attention to these struggles because of its overpopularity. But we've already given you a very clear mechanism from the first speaker of our team that only by that way can we lessen the risk of accidentally encountering these problems, because it raises awareness. Why? Two reasons. Because as aforementioned, TV series contain many episodes which portray a progress of character development that later on introduce lessons. Even if it might decrease the engrossment from the audience, the severity of these problems still appear no matter what, and people still will find it as an issue because they heard about them all the time. For example, a teen facing anxiety and depression doesn't mean that the society pay less attention to them. The fact is that there are still so many youth foundations and organizations working every day to help them get out of their problems, right? So, according to UCLA 2021, 131 people out of 157 teens watches Youth Struggle series as a habit, claim that they even talk about it with their peers, parents, and friends. Why? Because a policy helped them to get more attached to these problems and really understand how urgent they are to be fixed in their society. Moving on. I reject. And moving on, what is the biggest clash today? Which side gives more benefits to the youth in the long run effectively? Your claim about adequacy is not a metric to this matter. Why? Because youth struggles do not last for a set of time, but it changes through many years. And the phrase enough mentioning does not exist, so that we advocate for filmmakers to push out as many updated TV series with up-to-date youth struggles as possible, so that these social situations always fit. I reject. So that these social situations always fit with what is being performed on those series. Even when the amount of information is too much or the content is too exaggerated, it will still bring more benefits of awareness. Why? Because our policy gives young people who have less privileges from developing nations more chances to get attached to these problems due to their cultures, and thus becoming the incentives for them to change. For example, Asians find a teen talking about how people normalize having sex before 18 years old is unacceptable and impolite, right? So we prioritize these people because those from developed nations already have incentives and alternatives to deal with the problem due to their superior education system and inherent open ideology to youth struggles via any forms, not just through TV series. So moreover, we contain the TV series, I reject, they contain characters with different backgrounds, diverse characteristics, and so that people will find themselves inside of those TV series and learn a lesson rather than all the social media means that have less gratification before popularization, so that we believe that people actually even pay more attention, not just do not pay less. Therefore, your side of the house obviously cannot protect the most vulnerable stakeholders in this debate, not as, and of course not as well as us. Not to mention these problems more common in these countries after cultural export, and that's why making these contents more widespread is an urgent thing to do. And our team can absolutely do this, because what we aim for is the equal benefits for both stakeholders, and even others, not risking one of them to receiving less, and create a better world diversely, regardless of cultures, ages, backgrounds, and other any forms or factors how to be included.
Very good job, guys. So why don't I start over here? How did you feel about your performance? Did you think you did as well as you thought you would?
So at the moment, I feel quite anxious. I did not meet up to my expectations as I started for a few moments. So I think I could have done better.
Think you could have done better, okay. And how do you feel about your performance? What do you think you did best?
Well, I think what I did best was the clash I made to talk to the opponent, but I also kind of expect I did better because my performance wasn't good as I expected it to.
Nice, perfect. So I'm not gonna keep us waiting long. Why don't I ask our judges? Who should I start with today? Why don't I start with Stuart? Can you please give me your view?
Generally, I think the proposition were out in head. However, just looking at this round as an isolated round, I'm now starting to think about whose ideas within that round were pushed further. So for Jiang, I do like the fact that you provided an alternative. Okay, so you mentioned that there are other sources of information where students can get this from, and therefore it may be even more beneficial to obtain this from more educational sources. And I do like the fact that you picked up on awareness doesn't help. Awareness has limitations. The main tenet of the other side is that it's about developing awareness, but that's where it stops. So I think those were strong. However, I think a lot of the other content was effectively not pushing your other ideas that much further in a preceding direction. However, the part that I really liked that I think really pushed your argument further was the idea of context. You mentioned the fact that not all, you guys won my 10 points for that round for pushing your argument slightly further than I believe the other team pushed theirs.
Nice, congratulations. Got 10 points for your team over there. And Lam, you want to go next?
I do agree with Mr. Stewart on the metric. I think, first of all, I really like your structure, Chiang, right? Yeah. I think it's very clear. The clashes are very clean, and you've summarized all of the main points and main rebuttals that happened in debate. However, to me, it sounded more like a reply speech, but in the longer time, because there was, limited material to develop your case, and rebuttals also recycled by the previous speeches. So I think in the very close round, it would be, not the competitive speeches. But I think you can definitely do it, right? For Khang, I think there were more surprising elements in your speech. For example, I think you were able to fix the main logical hole in your team's case. For example, like in the previous speeches, you guys focused a lot on, the urgency and the need of why we need to raise awareness. But there's a lack of mechanism on how the saturation coverage of youth struggles in such TV series in particular is the exclusive way for us to achieve that achievement, for example. And I think you did fantastic job, especially with example how people in developing countries, right, in conservative societies can actually get exposed and be connected and be related to the materials in this TV series, which cannot happen on their side, right? And there's no incentive for them to change that and their work in such societies. So for that reason, based on these kind of speeches, 10 points go to opposition.
Good job at catching up over there, opposition. Hey, Juan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you once again for a fantastic round. I'm going to start with the proposition a little bit. I think what I've appreciated from the proposition team thus far that's carried well throughout the third speaker is a framing and nuance of how damaging these shows can be on youth mental health, particularly with the idea of how the true victims or those who are truly affected will always kind of grab the short stick out of the saturation because they're not really given that places or spaces to speak and be themselves. However, I think there's a limitation towards the end of the speech where ultimately I'm left with, sure, we could have changes too, documentaries, educational programs, wonderful things, but I felt like the conclusion is a little bit unclear there as to what you want, because I wonder, without these shows, how do we get that awareness and how do we get that change? On the other hand, I think opposition, there was so much good material in your speech in terms of like how filmmakers want to stay current to their time. They need to create relevant or relatable material and all of this. And I was just like, oh, I wish I would have heard this a little bit earlier from the opposition team in terms of why it's important that the saturation leads to this discussion. But ultimately, what I really appreciated about your speech was the layers of nuance that you added in terms of the context of how what does awareness even mean? Because I think you really carried your team's arguments further when you were able to explain to me that attention is not simply just people knowing. Now people can step into the shoes of these characters. We can empathize. We can truly understand the nuances of how this is an important issue. So incredibly close, but nonetheless, ultimately, I also gave it to the opposition. So congratulations on that.
My friend, you look sad.
I would say so, yeah.
Don't be sad, it's okay. Don't worry, man, you did a good job.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You know, she's a tough cookie over there. She did a pretty good job, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. She's a well-experienced debater.
Oh, it's okay, don't worry about that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. Oh my, look at you, you got 30 points.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So, do they owe you something?
No, I think they have done all of their best, and I'm really proud of them.
Thank you, guys. It's nice to hear from you guys. Please take a seat, guys.
The fact that people think they have known enough of this topic means that they won't dig deeper into the topic and make any systemic change.
Because the most fundamental question, what is the world without saturation coverage look like? We did not see that image portrayed fully in your speech today.
Because I think you really carried your team's arguments further when you were able to explain to me that attention is not simply just people knowing. Now people can step into the shoes of these characters.
Welcome back to the debaters. We've had 3 great debates and we have 1 left for us. Right now, the proposition team is at 50 points and the opposition team is at 40 points. The winner's not really clear yet, and we have 15 points left on the stake. Without further ado, let's get into our very last round. For our reply speeches, On the proposition team, we will have Phang Thế Việt. And for our opposition team, we'll have Lê Hoàng Thái Hưng. So my friend, we're just lagging behind slightly. You think you can steal the rest of the points and win?
I think that it's possible for us to do that.
Okay, well, if you can trộm vía from the last person, then I think you can definitely do it. So, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And my friend over here, I mean, the last round, maybe you guys didn't get any points, but this round, you can definitely get 15, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I wish you the best of luck too.
Thank you.
Okay. For our last round, the reply speech, we'll have a few changes. Each contestant will have 2 minutes, no POIs, and this time we'll start with the opposition team. Are we clear, guys?
Yes.
On your marks, get set, debate.
We believe that the strategic mistake in this debate from the proposition side is that they do not bring up a sufficient alternative and alternative to solve the problem on their side of the house. We believe the two main things that they say in this debate is that they will build something, information, that is less but true. We do not see how are they going to solve this problem, and we do not how are they going to do it and better than outside the house. The second thing that they're going to do is that they told us they're going to do this by like things of education or like social media. We believe the second point that they mentioned have been successfully rebutted by our third speaker. We believe at the end of this debate, the alternative from the opposition side, at the proposition side, doesn't hold any value in this debate. So it's really easy to conclude that on their side of the house, they are not going to solve anything. Also, we believe in this debate, we've proved to you two things. First, we have awareness. Secondly, we have changes. The reason why we have awareness to you is that throughout our speeches, we told you the analysis is that this kind of corporations, they are targeting youth, and the way to actually make the most profit is that they are trying their best to be relatable, to attract more attention from this kind of youth. So that will definitely make them have more money by this kind of films. By that analysis alone, that has not been read by three speeches from the all three speeches from their side of the house. We believe you can still have the awareness on our side of the house. Second thing that we have changed. The reason we have changed is that we provided to you with different analysis from the second and the third speaker on why on our side of the house that they will have changed because they are incentivized to do it, and they will have like reliability and passion from this kind of people and this kind of youth stakeholders. So at the end of the debate, we believe we have won it. Thank you.
Not all publicity is good publicity, especially when they cement harmful caricatures within the impressionable minds of teens who are to be the future generation. But now, let's go to some strategic weighing on their side on this debate as a whole. Firstly, on terms of the incentive, is it to be relatable or is it to be dramatized? Is it to bring romanticization to the topic, right? I think we've explained to you extensively about the need for profit can only exist when they keep pushing the boundaries, when they make it so dramatic so that people can, they see it as something interesting, right? We think relatability doesn't happen when most of these people are non-victims who haven't experienced these issues, meaning they're going here for some drama, for some very incredible things that they've likely never seen in their lives. But now, on to other things, right? They recognize that opposition impacts is reliant on the premise these shows being good, yet they have no substantive to explain for it why these shows are good in the first place. Meaning, our claims on how it leads to misrepresentation, romanticization, and desensitization of the topics means their impacts and their solutions are skewed in nature. It will never tackle the real problem. Meaning, they get crumbs, but the homeless, the addicts, and the people struggling from youth struggles, they still remain disenfranchised. But two, they themselves draw our counterfactual about how there is already a recognition of right and wrong within the status quo and how people are able to differentiate it, right? Meaning, we are slowly on the path, gradual sure, but surely we're going up to Mount Olympus and we're going to achieve awareness soon, eventually. On the other hand, their side actively kills the little kindles in a campfire of awareness by actually going backwards and killing this ability to differentiate between right and wrong of individuals, meaning their impacts actually go behind, they de-evolve, and they worsen society overall. The end all be all is that, yes, maybe we don't have progress in it all, but staying at the same place is better than going backwards. So proud to propose.
Well, good work there, guys. This round is going to be completely anonymous, so I'm not going to make many comments, okay? Welcome back, everyone, for today's final results. I know you guys are really waiting and really anxious, but sorry, I've got something else I want to introduce to you guys. Before we get to the final verdict, I want to take a look at a very special prize for one of our lucky contestants today. Take a look on our screen over here. This is a live vote done by a few audience members to find the most valuable speaker. You can take a look live. People are voting live over here. Look, Vũ Hương Yang has 1 vote. Phang Thế Việt has 1 vote. Keep looking, guys. Look, keep looking. Vũ Hương Yang, please step on up to the stage. Okay, and for the winning prize, you'll get 1 million Vietnamese dong.
Yes.
So what are you gonna do?
I think I will buy some present for them. Yeah, that's well.
Wow, okay, well, congratulations. I mean, you're pretty likable. Now I'd like to invite the rest of you guys up on stage with me, please. So I know we've been waiting for a long time, so let's review the results for the final round. Let's see here. I have one here. 1 vote goes for the CNN Bumblebees. Wow. Another vote's going for the Lost Stars. And the final vote goes for Proposition Team. Congratulations. Okay, so that leaves us with the final results of 60 for the proposition and 45 for the opposition. Meaning that you guys won. Congratulations. I'd like to thank the British University of Vietnam for accompanying us throughout the program, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.